Hello, I want to talk to you about why school mathematics still makes no sense. Why do we still think that kids filling in bubbles equates to a fair measure of mathematical knowledge? I argue it's a historical problem. In 1878, a New York Times editorial screamed, "The preposterous rules and problems of most arithmetic books have the effect of producing an intense hatred of mathematics in about 2/3 of persons that ever went to school." A study of 100 elementary math classrooms in the 1930s found teacher-led note-taking, a reliance on the textbook, and extreme stress placed on abstract arithmetic and skill in computation. Jumping ahead to the 1980s, a study of 39 fifth-grade classrooms found mathematics instruction places students in a position of almost total dependence on the teacher and contains one route to learning: teacher presentation followed by student practice. This approach is driven by a set of beliefs that came about in the early 1900s, late 1800s, is driven by this unique set of beliefs that I argue we are still working under. So I want to share what I think these beliefs are with you. First of all, the beliefs are there's a pre-existing fixed differences in students' mathematical ability, that these are meaningful and measurable, and that these are unevenly distributed among different groups of students. This led to so-called scientific methods used to justify beliefs about ability. In his epic Genius and Stupidity, yes, that's the name of the book, Lewis Terman, who created the IQ test, said, "Ethnology shows racial progress is closely paralleled by the ability to deal with mathematical concepts." Terman's tests were meant as a tool to justify the separation of students by, quote, native ability into so-called tracks. He had 5 of them. He labeled these gifted, bright, average, slow, and special. Any of those terms sound familiar? Along with this, Edward Thorndike in the 1920s wrote Psychology of Arithmetic and said, sure, students can be taught to do 3 plus 3 and 2 plus 5, but they will never understand the mathematics behind that by any sort of teaching whatsoever. There was a concern because more and more diverse students were in our classrooms. NCTM's president, no offense, Mike, said the increase in school population has given us a wider sampling of the general public and hence has in all probability lowered the level of ability. A leader of the progressive movement, Kilpatrick, said, "We have in the past taught algebra and geometry to too many, not to too few." At this time, we saw the emergence of standardized testing designed to sort students. They were designed with more problems than any pupil could handle in the time given. They were supposed to measure each supposed ability and compare one individual with another so we could put each in their proper place. But of course, times have changed. We're in the 21st century. NCTM has an equity position. We have Common Core standards. We talk about algebra for all. But have they changed in classrooms for the students? Well, in 2000 to 2002, observations in over 300 classrooms showed, quote, an overwhelming majority of lessons focused on low-level thinking and portray math as a factual knowledge and procedures. So what are students learning? Well, just as in the 1800s, students today still echo the sentiment, I hate math, I will never get it, I know that for a fact. But we know our students are creative, they have lots of passion, and they can express this in many ways, as we see this student who was given some open-ended problems to try. He created his own method of doing these and expressed his disdain for the subject. So, what is the problem? I argue we're stuck in a 1900s mentality. Assessments we use today are built on the same beliefs espoused by Terman and his friends. The California state exams have a criteria called item discrimination, which means how effectively each item differentiates between students who know the most and those who know the least. If all students reach mastery, the test is no longer valid. It's not about students, it's not about, so you see the ghost of Terman is with us. It's not about mastery, it's about labeling students. Notice the parallel, there are 5 classes on the California exam. We cannot We cannot move ahead because we're caught up in this legacy of racist, unjust beliefs of the early 1900s and continue to think it's okay to sort students on a manufactured measure designed to separate, not educate. So what do we have to do? We have to recognize math learning and failure as a result of historical practices and move away. We have to expect students to make sense of math and change our teaching when they don't. And we must demand and lead reform of assessments so they support learning and not sorting.